Welcome, everyone, to the Next Gen 4 International Forum webinar on Phoenix and Super Phoenix feedback experience. Dr. Patricia Pavier is the Director of the Office of Material and Chemical Technologies at DOE, Office of Nuclear Energy, and she's also the Chair of the GIF Education and Training Task Force. Patricia?
Thank you, Bertha, and it's my pleasure to have Joël Guides with us today. Joël is working at the CEA, the French Alternative Energies and Energy Atomic Commission. He began his career in the field of sodium crew fast reactors after graduating from the École Centrale de Paris in 1973. He worked at Cadarache for 8 years on the design, dimensioning, and testing of sodium components for Super Phoenix. He also followed the initial results in his field from the Phoenix Sodium Crew Fast Reactor startup in 1974. He joined Phoenix, where for 5 years he was in charge of measurements and tests on the power plant. In 1987, he returned to Cadarache to lead a thermohydraulics laboratory where many tests were performed for Phoenix, Super Phoenix, and the European Fast Reactor project. After a period of apparent unfaithfulness to fast reactors, during which he successfully managed the OSIRIS research reactor located in Saclay and the European Commission's reactor HFR located in the Netherlands, he returned to Phoenix in 2002, where he restarted and managed the reactor until 2008 during its final operating phase. He is now an international expert for the CEA. He wrote the books Phoenix, The Feedback Experience in 2012. It was translated in 2013 and a new edition in 2014. And also the other book, Super Phoenix, Technical and Scientific Achievements, which was edited in 2015, translated in 2016, and a new French version edition in 2017. It's really my pleasure to have with us Joël. I give you the floor, Joël, and I thank you again for volunteering to give this webinar. Thank you, Joël.
Thanks, Patricia. Today, the summary of the presentation is first, we speak of fast breeder reactors objectives, generality and the objectives of the fast breeder reactors. After, we speak of the story in the world of the fast sodium reactor and especially of the French experience. Then we have some words on Phoenix and Super Phoenix feedback experience, the analysis theme by theme, and after the conclusion of the presentation. The objective of fast breeder reactors are mainly the uranium availability, the possibility of plutonium management, the possibility to manage the waste of the water reactors, the transportation possibilities, the optimization of the fuel cycle, and it's really the sustainable energy for the future. Some words on the optimized cycle of the fast breeder reactor. You see on the CHEM the reactor optimized cycle with the possibility to make the fabrication of the fuel with depleted uranium that is very available today, and with the plutonium obtained with the reprocessing of the fuel. And with the depleted uranium and the plutonium, it's possible to have fabrication of fuel and to use it in the fast reactor. After we make some recycling activities, and we can go back with very few waste, only 4% of the fuel. Though for this optimized cycle, we need no mines of uranium, we need no uranium enrichment facilities, we can manage the plutonium, we can also make transmutation of the actinides that decrease the time of nocivity of the waste. We can burn all the waste produced by the water reactors, and we can obtain a drastic reduction of the final waste. reduction in quantity and reduction in time. With the fast breeder reactor, in the schema, we can see the common energy available in the world with and without fast reactors. Without fast reactors, and if we take only the conventional energy, you see that the coal remains the main energy for the future. That is very dangerous for the planet and for the climatic changement. And for the if we use the fast breeder reactor, we see that the uranium can be in the future the main conventional energy to be used. In GIF, the fast breeder reactors, we have in GIF, in the International Forum, 4 types of reactors that can be fast reactors. So the sodium reactors, the lead reactors, the molten salt reactor, and a gas fast reactor. But the only type of reactor that has been built and operated are the sodium fast reactor. For the molten salt reactor, there was a US prototype a lot of years ago, but it was not a fast reactor. And for the lead reactor, we have only the experience with lead bismuth reactors on the Russian submarines. Other hand, a large experience is available on the sodium fast reactor in the world and in France also. The sodium fast breeder in the world, we have now the first nuclear reactor to produce electricity was a sodium reactor. In fact, it was NAC reactor in 1951. 27 sodium fast reactors have been built in the world and operated. A lot of countries have worked on this type of reactor. The USA, the Russia, France, Japan, India, China, UK, and Germany. The last one to have started is the BN800 in Russia, the 800 megawatt, electrical megawatt. It was connected to the grid in 2016. And now we have in India 500 electrical megawatt that should start next year. So you see that there is a large experience in the world on this type of reactor. For the French experience, we have had 4 phases. The first was with Rhapsody, for 66 to 83. It was a little reactor of 40 megawatt, thermal megawatt. After we have had Phoenix, for 73 to 2003. It was operating at 250 electrical megawatt. Super Phoenix, that began to operate in 1985 and stopped its work in 1997. It was a 1,240 electrical megawatt. And after the closure of Super Phoenix, Phoenix restarted after a safety evaluation for 2003 to 2009. And it restarted with only 2/3 of its power. It means 1,700 electrical megawatt. So we see that in France we have a big experience on this type of reactor. The Rhapsody experience, it was a little loop type reactor that was built mainly to test materials and fuel. There was no electricity production. The aim of this reactor was to test materials for structures, components, and fuel assembly during the life of the reactor. And this experience of the structure, the components, and the fuel was used for Phoenix choice because Phoenix was built during the operation of Rhapsody. A lot of problem of corrosion of the fuel pins was studied in Rhapsody and was resolved. And at the end of the life of this reactor, very interesting tests were provided, particularly a number of tests where the sodium chlorate was stopped at nominal power without any control rod shutdown to show the intrinsic safety of this type of reactor. For Phoenix, The feedback experience was a large experience. The reactor was producing electricity, and this reactor holds a special place among French nuclear power plants. It was built in 1968 by integrated CEA EDF GESRIA team. It went critical in 1973 and was cooperative with EDF. It was 80% CEA, 20% EDF from 1974 to 2009. During the 35 years lifespan, it played a dual role as electricity generator and experimental research reactor. Thus, it gathered a considerable experience for fast breeder reactor systems, demonstration of design and operation, breeder potential, transportation possibilities, development of all technical fields involved, and validation of the technology used. This book has attempted to summarize the wheels of syntheoretical, exciting experience feedback from the 35 years for the future fourth generation. After the Phoenix book, we try to make the same type of exercise on SuperPhoenix. The title of the book was SuperPhoenix Technical and Scientific Achievements. A huge industrial experience was acquired during the reactor construction. It's the biggest sodium fast reactor never built in the world. And the reactor was built in 7 years, from 1977 to the beginning of sodium filling sodium in 1984. And the nominal power was reached 2 years later, in December 1986. Despite a complicated political life with a strong opposition of ecologists, a big experience on the technical fields was also acquired until the reactor shut down 10 years later for political reasons. The two books were written to try to resume this experience. The first book is a book on Phoenix, the Retour d'Expérience, that has been edited by EDP Science in 2012, and a re-edition was necessary in 2013. The English translation, Phoenix Feedback Experience, is also available in EDP Science editor. The book SuperPhoenix Architechnique and Scientifique, written in collaboration with Gérard Prel from EDF, has been edited by EDP Science, also the same editor, in 2015, and a re-edition was also necessary in 2017. The English translation was provided by the Springer Editions in 2017. The title is SuperPhoenix Technical and Scientific Achievements. So you can see here the two faces of the books. The book Phoenix, it is a French version, that is the same editor, EDP Science, and you have the book on SuperPhoenix, SuperPhoenix Technical and Scientific Achievements, that you can find in the Springer editions. What was the principle of these books? The principle of these books was a thematic analysis. The books are not organized around the chronological experience, but only with thematic analysis. The main themes studied are neutronic, materials, components, thermal hydraulics matters, fuel, handling, and so on. The presentation of today will give only 3 examples of all these accumulated experience described theme by theme in these 2 books. The main themes of the Phoenix books, as example, we have a general presentation of the reactor that is useful because it gives the I can go back with there is a general portion of the reactor that is useful because it gives a general view and the general dimension of the reactor, general data also. After the objectives of the reactors, after operational review to see how the reactor has been operated during all the years, the safety review, all the problem of safety that can occur during the 35 years of operation, with all the incidents, all the problems related to the decayed removal of the plant, that is the main theme, the core physics, with all the neutronic matters, the fuel element, with the experience acquired on the fuel and on the material of the fuel. After we arrive on the big components, the intermediate exchanger, with a lot of problems of Phoenix that are explained, and we can avoid now these problems. All the problems arrive on the steam generators, the sodium pumps, and the control rods. That are the main components. All that are the main components of the plant. After we have the list of all the main irradiations made in this reactor in the in-cell examination, with the main results we obtained, the demonstration transmutation possibilities, with a lot of tests that were made especially in the second phase of operation of Phoenix, and the results of main tests made in the reactor. After we have the final tests that were used at the end of life of Phoenix, special tests were made. After we have the experience of the materials and the difficulties and some corrosion problems. After we have all the experience acquired of the in-service inspection, the washing, decontamination and repair. You have to know that all the components have been taken out of the plant, washed and decontaminated in Phoenix. It's a big experience on the subject. The handling matter, the sodium leaks, we have more than 30 sodium leaks in Phoenix, and we explain the experience that we acquired in the matters. All the problems of sodium chemistry or sodium technology, that is all the little apparatus, instrumentation, things like that. The results of environmental reports, the negative reactivity trips, it was an accident that we had at Phoenix at the end of life in Phoenix. All the activity of reprocessing and multi-recycling, a cogeneration experiment, and the Phoenix contribution to Super Phoenix. So you see that we have with that a lot of very various themes with a lot of technical results. And on Super Phoenix book, we will come back and have the same types of thema, the construction review of the reactor, all the tests at the beginning to operate the plant during 2 years, with some problem of vibration of the shells, the operation results of the plant, the problem of safety, especially for the sodium fire experience. We have the operating experience of the plant, the fuel cell assembly, all the neutronics matters. It is the largest core on the sodium fast reactor that was ever tested in the world. And it is an experience that's always very interesting now for the code of neutronics. After we arrive to the big components, the primary pump, the secondary pump, the intermediate exchanger, the steam generators, we give for all the components, all the experience that we have had on these components. After we have the problem of sodium-water reactions, and after we have sodium leaks and fire that we had some sodium leaks on the plant, and we explain the reasons of the leaks, the reactor shutdown control system, the decayed removal, the materials. It would give a very interesting experience because we have used the experience of Rhapsody, then the experience of Phoenix, and Super Phoenix are the largest experience on the materials to be used for the sodium fast reactor. After we have all the problem of thermal hydraulics, that are the difficult problems, the in-service inspection with new methodology that was tested in Super Phoenix, the chemistry of sodium, how to purify the sodium, and how to maintain the good level of purification of sodium, the sodium technology with instrumentation and other matters, handling, environmental results, dismantling, It was not in the book on Phoenix. And Super Phoenix children, that are all the designed experience that we test after the end of Super Phoenix, with Super Phoenix 2 and with the European fast reactor. Today, it's clearly impossible to see all these themas because it's a very long. It should be a very long presentation. We choose only 3 examples. The first example is the reprocessing experience on Phoenix, because it's an industrial experience unique in the world, and because also when we speak on sodium fast reactor, we need also to speak of reprocessing, because the two are necessary for the interest of this type of reactor. After we speak of the SPX construction, because it's an impressive industrial work, it's the biggest reactor ever built in the world. And after we speak of the neutronic of Super Phoenix core. It remains today it remains a very interesting case for all the neutronic studies. It's clear that a lot of other points could have been interesting to discuss, as chemical matters, materials, fiber, water separation, and even dismantling. But it is not possible in such a short time. For example, in July 2007, with Gerard Prel, we were in Korea, and we need 3 days only to present the summary of the Super Phoenix book. So today we will see only three examples, and even for these 3 points, I will be relatively short in comparison of the presentation we do usually. Phoenix reprocessing. The first case that 520 Phoenix assemblies were reprocessed. It represents 4.4 tons of plutonium. In 73, we have the first radiation of Phoenix fuel. In 80, we have the first Phoenix assembly loaded in core and built with recycled plutonium coming from the reprocessing process. In 91, we have the end of Phoenix fuel reprocessing activities. Here we have the schema. Here we have the years, and here we have the number of assemblies that were fabricated, loaded in the core, unloaded from core, dismantled, reprocessed, and total reprocessed. This reprocessing activity was made in 3 different lines. The first line was the AT1 line in La Hague. It was the first French prototype facility for the fast reactor spent fuel reprocessing. It was operating from 69 to 77. Capacity was relatively low, 1 kilogram per day, and we tried the processing activity on Rhapsody, Fortissimo, and Phoenix. Here is the table with all the AT1 reprocessing campaign, batch by batch, with the number of the campaign, number of pins, the amount of uranium and plutonium, the megawatt joule per ton of the fuel assembly, and the months, the time necessary for that. So in this book, we try to explain all what was made in terms of reprocessing on the 3 in AT1, in Marcoule, and in La Hague. In AT1 line, with dismantling of assemblies in Phoenix hot cells, after we sharing operation needle by needle in AT1, and the dissolving carried out intermittently with successive extraction cycles to separate uranium and plutonium. In the APM, Atelier Pilote Marcoule, the top line was operating from 73 to 83. In first, we have dismantled the fuel of Rhapsody Fortissimo for Ken Carl, so German reactor, and 76 to 78, the first core of Phoenix reactor. And after, for 78 to 83, we have reprocessed 6.8 tons of MOX core of Phoenix. After this installation, APM was removed to Thor. It was a new installation. And this Thor line, we have another batch of Phoenix fuel that were reprocessed in this new line. After, we have gone from 79 to 84 to UP2. UP2 is a reprocessing, it's an installation that is in La Hague, in the north of France, and we have reprocessed 10 tons of Phoenix internal core fuel. In conclusion, we have reprocessed 520 assemblies of Phoenix, the equivalent of 4.5 Phoenix cores. That excludes the first uranium-enriched core. This represents a little over 26 tons. The measurements made during the reprocessing operations allowed an experimental estimation of overall breeding rate of 1.16, which confirms the expected theoretical value 1.13. Here we see all the cycle of the fuel in Phoenix. So in Phoenix is in Marcoule. We have here 4.4 tons of PU created by the 520 assembly going to reprocessing in Marcoule and La Hague. After 1.1 ton has gone to other site of PU, of plutonium, and 3.3 tons go back to the fabrication in Cadarache of fuel. And the fabrication, the fuel, the MOX fuel built with plutonium, come back to Phoenix. Here we see the comeback of the fuel to Phoenix, and 5.3 tons of plutonium were coming from Marcoule to make the global fabrication of all the fuel in Phoenix. So the conclusion of the Phoenix fuel reprocessing and fabrication, about 3.3 tons of reprocessing plutonium was used to build the new Phoenix fuel. That means that about 40% of Phoenix fuel were built and burned with plutonium coming from the own reprocessing. For several assemblies, this complete fuel cycle, reprocessing plus fabrication plus burning, was 3 times achieved. This unique industrial experience in the world has allowed an industrial demonstration of multi-recycling possibilities in a fast breeder reactor. If I go back on the presentation, we have more explanations in the chapter on the reprocessing and fabrication of the book. It's only a summary. Now we arrive at the second example, the Super Phoenix construction. Here we can see the site of Super Phoenix before the construction. Then we see Super Phoenix as an European reactor. The owner of Super Phoenix was not EDF, it was a NERSA company established in 1974 with EDF, but also Enel, German company, and also British Nuclear Electric, and so on. And a law was enacted to authorize this organization to operate in France. The order to industry was passed in 1976, and authorization decrease also in 1976. There was some negative consequences on the European organization because you have to choose, sometimes it was difficult to choose the best industrial supplier because each country wants to get back its money. For the turbine, the Italian provider was Ansaldo, which had no turbine with the power of 1 to 1240 electrical megawatt. The choice of 2 turbines of 620 megawatts was made. Some providers were not well known and sometimes out of the nuclear field. and some technical difficulties will arrive later due to their poor choice, such as the material of drum vessel. This complicated organization was also cause of extra cost and extra deadlines. We need to make some exceptional transport. When it is possible, it is better to manufacture in factory. So all the large components, pumps, heat exchangers, steam generators, were transported to site. Here we see the steam generators arriving at the site in Superphénix. The rotating plug in two parts and the diagrid, 8.9 meters of diameter, were the biggest parts transported by exceptional transportation into the site. Here we can see the diagrid arriving from Italy on the site of Superphénix. Reactor block. So we began the civil engineering work on site with the reactor block construction. The reactor pit and storage drum pit are built inside the reactor block. We can see the pit in construction here. We can see the block in construction. Gantries are managed in the block. Gantries can be seen here. Gantries are managed in the block to allow later the transportation of the main structure inside the civil engineering. So you can see the workshop building. You can see here the hall that will be necessary to introduce the material. For the sodium reactor, we have a large structure. For example, the safety vessel has a diameter of 22.5 meters and height of 15.9 meters. The weight is also important, until 850 tons. Though the transportation from factory was not possible, and there was manufactured on site in the workshop building. You can see here the workshop building, the big building here, and all the large structures were built inside. So we have to give some notion of package. Inside the workshop and before transportation, we have to build the safety vessel. You see the diameter and the weight. We have to build the main vessel, including structure, as core catcher, core support, and so. The internal section, the diagrid, the slab, the two rotating plugs, and the dome. And all that arriving inside the pit as the Russian we'll see. Oh, where I am. Ah, there is something missing in the presentation. Welding procedures. We have to build the element in the workshop, and at this time, the base elements available in the factory have a length of about 1.8 meters. Well, we have to pre-assemble and to weld on site. We have a large quantity of welds to provide. Only for the main vessel, there was 800 meters of welds to provide. All the welds have been performed manually, because at this time there was no possibility with automatic welding. 100% of radiographic control. The post-welding heat treatment was not possible for the large structure. Though it was not possible to make heat treatment, we need the special procedures. And final welding, as the main vessel with the slab, for example, was to provide inside the reactor block. So we see arriving at all the package. The first package was the safety vessel. You see it arrives inside the reactor, and we see the air. You can see the pit, and the safety vessel we go inside the pit. After, In the safety vessel that is air, we have the arriving of the main vessel. Main vessel is air that will arrive in the safety vessel. And air, we can see shocks that are installed between the two vessels for the provisory installation. After we have the internal structures that arrive inside the main vessel. We have the internal structures. After we have the fourth package, the reactor slab. You can see here the reactor slab that is raising above the main vessel. It is the heaviest one with 850 tons. The schedule simplified shows that we start in 77, the beginning of the operation of civil engineering. We begin to feed in sodium in 84, and the nominal power was reached in 86. So 10 years, about 10 years, before the first concrete and the nominal power of the plant. That are the final schedule results. We can say that there was some overbelay. You see that all the overbelay are given transparency, and the nominal power was reached in 112 months instead 17 announced at the beginning. It was 42 months slippage, but when we compare today with the delay to build the new reactors, I think it was a good performance. Conclusion of this resume of the Superphénix construction. It was successful, innovative manufacturing on site with a workshop. With, in the future, the development of automatic welding adapted to fast breeder reactor materials have to be used. It was 7 years of construction for 7 billion euros 2012. It is for a prototype of large prototype, a very honorable performance. The 30 months overdelay could be reduced in a phased production. Now we arrive to the third example for today. It is the neutronic operation of the Superphénix core. This core with 5.7 tons of plutonium inside was the largest sodium fast reactor and never operated in the world. Here we have the list of all the elements inside the reactor. 360 fuel sub-assemblies, 21 control rods plus 3 special control rods, 222 breeder sub-assemblies, and you see a lot of elements inside this core. There were 2 enrichment zones in this core to flatten the flux curves. The fissile core in periphery, core 2, was higher enrichment than the inner core, core 1, and the weight enrichment were different between the core 2 and the core 1. There was 99.53% plutonium in the core 2 and 15.52% plutonium in the core 1. The management mode, it was a cycle of 320 EFPD, equivalent full power base. Each subassembly remains in the reactor 2 cycles, so 640 equivalent full power base. At each shutdown, half the core is reloaded with fresh fuel, and the core is rearranged for the next cycle. It's a frequency 2 management. The first core has an excess of reactivity, that means a special management for the first cycles. The neutron monitoring was managed with 12 measurement channels located under the reactor vessel. 2 trains with 3 low-level channels and 3 high-level channels were installed. For the first divergence, 3 measurements in a special device, Buffy, implemented in the center of the core with 3 low-level channels allowing more precise measurements. The control rod system will be analyzed in chapter 15, and the treatment of the signal delivers via the reactivity double time of power. We have a thermal monitoring. The inlet temperature is measured in the primary pumps and used for the relative diagoid part that gives the entry of temperature in the fuel assembly. The outlet temperature are measured for each facial subassembly with two thermocouples chromal element. All these temperatures are managed by the core monitoring system to survey abnormal heating and to calculate the maximal clad temperature in line. For the clad failure detection and location, the clad failure detection system was called DRG. A sampling system with 8 modules allows to measure delayed neutrons emitted by fission products released in sodium. The clad failure location system with 6 sodium sampling modules allows, with rotating selectors, to measure each outlet and to identify the concerned subassembly. A test reactor with the source caramel was made to demonstrate and calibrate the two systems and to measure the time of transfer. A measurement of the cover argon contamination is also made with gamma measurement. We have some photographies. The initial core loading. The core has been loaded with demi-fuel assemblies for further hydraulic tests in sodium. You see, at the beginning, we fill, before to fill in sodium, we make an initial core loading. After the hydraulic test in sodium, the demi-assembly is placed by fresh fuel, by batch. The loading is made by checkerboard approach to criticality. No neutron source was used. After each loaded batch, the Buffy measurements give reactivity evolution. After the loading of 325 subassemblies, a first divergence was achieved. The replacement of the 33 remaining dummy subassemblies was performed in 2 batches. Here we have the core divergence measurements the day of the divergence. There was also in the core a lot of experimental measurements. 22 experimental subassemblies were used for measurement of flux distribution in the core, and the maximal linear power density at fuel power was confirmed at 480 watts per centimeter. Here we have the measurement of the counter-reaction coefficient, the coefficient KGH. K is the core inlet temperature coefficient, G is the core heating coefficient, H is the power coefficient. All these counter coefficients are negative. That assures the safety of the electronic of the core. The measurements are made by step on reactivity on the primary pump speed and secondary pump speed, and then by calculation with 3 equations with 3 unknown values. A lot of other measurements was provided on this curve during about 6 months. The negative reactive values of each control rod, the average hydrothermal coefficient, the Doppler coefficient, the Doppler constant, and all the heating of each assembly was compared to the forecast calculations. The operating experience has shown a lot of things. The core thermal monitoring was efficient to prevent flow blockage. We have an accident with a rubber plug inside the subassembly foot that was loaded in the reactor, and the little flow rate inside the subassembly was measured, and you can follow the core status at terminal transit situations. The core neutronic monitoring was efficient, but could be improved. I don't think that it will be better to have complementary measurements inside the core. We have had some mechanical problems on the DRG-LRG and the detection of clouding failure. We have special effects due to large cores, and that led to some initial discrepancies between calculation and measurements, up to 70% for some subassembly powers and 20% for some control rods worth. And so we have a lot of work on the code to come back and to explain this difference. In conclusion on SuperPhoenix neutronic experience, the SuperPhoenix core with 360 fuel anomalies and about 5.7 tons of plutonium is the largest sodium phosphor reactor never operated in the world. 5,000 was approximately 10 cubic meters for 3,000 thermal megawatt. Loading, divergence, and monitoring options were well validated and didn't give any particular difficulties to operator. Measurement allows further improvements in neutron calculation codes, and some monitoring improvements were suggested for the future in the book. In conclusion, a large experience exists with the construction and operation of the French SFR reactors Phoenix and SuperPhoenix. These two books on the subjects give the first idea of this experience with a lot of recommendations for each topic. We hope that they will be useful for all designers to further enhance the design of this future promising Generation 4 reactors. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dr. Guidez. If you have questions for on the presentation today, please go ahead and type those in the chat box. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I'm going to go ahead and just give you a sneak peek of the upcoming webinars. In December, we anticipate a presentation on the sustainability a relevant framework for addressing the Gen 4 nuclear fuel cycle from Dr. Poisson from France. And in January, a presentation on the China HTR PM from Professor Yang Yule from China. And in February, a presentation on Gen 4's reactor materials and their challenges from Dr. Malloy from the United States.